Hello, my friends. Today, activity on the front remains very high. Over the past 24 hours, 261 assaults have been recorded. This indicates that the Russian army is in a hurry to advance. Meanwhile, Trump said that Putin wants to end this war quickly. Zelensky will take part in negotiations between the US and Russia, Trump said. According to Trump, he may meet with Putin very soon in Saudi Arabia. The US president added that the Russian dictator wants to end the war quickly. He also stated that even he himself finds it hard to believe that Russia wants a war with NATO. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's move on to the situation on the front. But before we begin, I want to remind you don't forget to support the development of truthful Ukrainian content by leaving a like. And if you are new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. Also, don't forget to recommend these videos to your friends so that as many people as possible know the truth. Now, let's move on to the Pokrovsk direction. Here the Russians are pushing very hard. A total of 71 attacks have been recorded, including those in the Kurakhove direction. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian Armed Forces have completed the clearing of the village of Pishchany, but there have been no reports of new counterattacks yet. However, it's highly likely that Drapati will try to cut off the Russian flank along the river near the village of Novosilka. For now, the Russians continue their attempts to advance toward Udachne. According to the Russians, they have even made some gains there, but the Ukrainian side hasn't confirmed this advance. Fighting is also ongoing in the Kotliny area, where the Russian forces attempting to move from the village of Shevchenko towards Zvirove. Battles continue for Dachinske, Lysivka, the village of Promень, Myrolюбівка, Yelizavetivka, Tarasivka, and across the fields near the highway. Over the past 24 hours, the front line has remained unchanged, but the situation remains very difficult. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians continue their attacks on Ulakli and are storming the village of Rozliv. Despite Russian claims of a successful breakthrough to Ulakli, the Ukrainian side hasn't officially confirmed this information. However, late last night, the Ukrainian forces began reporting that Russian forces had already cleared the area where Ukrainian troops had been encircled. The pocket east of Ulakli has been cleared and is now under Russian control. Some of our soldiers managed to escape under Russian fire while others were captured. Tell me, how many times have I warned about this? And yet such an obvious disaster was allowed to happen in the end. This will keep happening unless the leadership up top finally wakes up. Friends, I honestly don't even know how to comment on this, but a similar situation has ended in tragedy before. In the Velyka Novosilka direction, the Russians carried out 25 assaults, a very high level of activity. They continue their attacks near the village of Novy Komar, as well as pushing beyond Velyka Novosilka and storming the village of Novosilka. There are also reports that Russian forces are making breakthroughs toward the village, but we are waiting to see how the situation develops. The Ukrainian forces are trying to push them back before they can establish a foothold. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, Russian forces are assaulting Novoandriivka and conducting shelling. However, over the past 24 hours, there have been no changes along the front line, but it's important to know that the Russians continue to heavily shell Nikopol and the Zaporizhzhia region. In the Kherson direction, there is significant Russian activity, and it's highly likely that they are preparing for a breakthrough to the right bank. So far, the Ukrainian forces have managed to repel all attacks, but the Russians continue their offensive operations, and Shalon without port. Now let's move on to the Toretsk direction. Over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have conducted 19 assaults. The Russians were unable to advance in Sherbinivka, and for now all attacks they have stopped. However, fighting continues in the areas of the Slakhips, Krymska, and Delievka. Despite the high level of activity, there have been no changes over the past day, and the Ukrainian armed forces continue to successfully repel all attacks. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians continue fighting in the central part of the city, with 29 assaults recorded across the entire sector in the past 24 hours. Activity remains very high. According to Ukrainian Armed Forces soldiers, they are gradually being forced to retreat, and there may soon be changes on the front line that won't favor Ukraine. Battles also continue for Stupochki and Protechane, while Russian forces persist with offensive operations in the fields toward Bilahora. However, for now, no confirmed changes to the front line have been reported in the past day. In the Siversk direction, the Russians continue storming Verkhnyo-Kamensk and are attempting a breakthrough near Ivano-Daryevka. However, just like before, Russian forces haven't achieved any success in this sector, and the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. In the Lyman direction, activity is extremely high. The Russians are urgently trying to advance toward Lyman, leading to the battles for the villages of Kolodezi, Zarychne, and Yampolivka, as well as breakthrough attempts near the village of Terny and in the Serebryanka forest. However, despite these intense activity, the Ukrainian forces continue to repel attacks, and the front line has remained unchanged over the past 24 hours. Looking at the geolocation maps, it's clear that the Russians will struggle to make quick progress toward Liman, as a strong defensive line is already in place before the city, making any movement from the region particularly difficult for them. In the Borova direction, the Russians are attempting breakthroughs near Lozova, storming Zeleny High and Novoyegorivka, while also pushing southward toward Krakivka. However, there have been no confirmed changes in the past day. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian forces have also increased their activity, attempting to break through toward Kupiansk. However, for now, battles continue for Petropavlivka, Novoosinovo, and Kolesnikivka. They are also trying to advance through the fields from Stepova Novoselivka, but over the past 24 hours, they have achieved no success, and the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. Fighting has once again been recorded near Dvorichna, where the Russians are attempting to push beyond the settlement. However, as of now, the front line remains unchanged. It's important to note that geolocation maps show Russian forces actively using FPV drones in the border area, striking Ukrainian forces equipment both on roads and in settlements. The drone warfare is clearly intensifying. Artillery is mainly operating close to the front line, while both the Ukrainian forces and Russian forces are using FPV drones for precise deep strikes, significantly increasing effectiveness. Unfortunately, this also leads to greater losses on both sides. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are storming Kozacha Lopань, but the activity is not at its peak and they have achieved no success. Fighting also continues for Vovchansk and the village of Tykhe, but here as well, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks with no confirmed changes. In the Kursk direction, Russian forces are still attempting to continue their counteroffensive, but it's clear that it has failed and they are unable to push the Ukrainian forces out of Russian territory. In reality, they would need to redeploy troops from the Ukrainian front to this area, and only then could they fully secure their territory. However, as we understand, Putin is primarily focused on capturing more Ukrainian land, making such a redeployment unlikely. For now, we are waiting to see how events unfold. Meanwhile, the White House National Security Council spokesperson expressed disappointment that Zelensky didn't sign the US proposal on critical minerals. Washington is disappointed by Zelensky's short-sighted decision to reject the excellent opportunity to sign the US proposed agreement on Ukraine's critical minerals, said White House National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes. He noted that the mineral agreement would supposedly allow American taxpayers to recoup the money sent to Kiev while also boosting Ukraine's economy. Hughes added that the White House believes that close economic ties with the US would be the best guarantee against future aggression and an essential part of lasting peace. Previously, Zelensky stated that in development of Ukraine's mineral resources by the US must be tied to security guarantees that protect against future Russian aggression. Nonetheless, this agreement is expected to be discussed further, and it's likely that Zelensky will eventually sign it, as this provision was included in his peace plan. Peskov, after it became known that the US wants to take resources without offering security guarantees in return, commented on the situation.
Back then, we were talking about two neighboring, brotherly, allied states and an equal dialogue. That's what the discussion was about at the time. Now, it's about a master-servant relationship that explains everything, and not even a vassal. This is a servant, and a bad one at that.
As we can see, he believes that Russia is brotherly, destroying Ukrainian cities and exterminating the Ukrainian people. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Meanwhile, Zelensky once again addressed the situation regarding casualties.
We have recorded 46,000 dead soldiers. Today, the number is in the tens of thousands. It's difficult to say precisely. Another tens of thousands are missing or in captivity. We can't know for sure because the missing could be dead or in captivity. And yes, it's tens of thousands, that's the truth. Over 350,000, around 380,000 wounded, and 19,500 deported children. This is what we know. We don't know how many thousands of civilians have been killed in occupied territories when Russia attacked and surrounded cities, destroying them. We don't know the number of dead, unfortunately. In liberated cities, we have found mass graves. They carried out mass executions and torture. In small towns with just a few thousand residents, we have found 500 bodies in a single grave. Everywhere Russia occupied, we don't know how many thousands of people they killed.
Friends, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.